Hello, everyone. Hopefully, this is all working and everyone can see and hear me. And I'm going to type in the chat, and everyone should be able to reply to that and say hello. Welcome. I'm Alan, and welcome to this our regular Thursday gardening session, in which myself and the members of the Anchore open source team, who are around me now, slightly smaller than usual group for reasons, and I'll introduce them in just a moment. We do this every Thursday. If you want to get a notification, then just subscribe to the channel. You can also follow us on all the social media stuff. We're Syft and Grype all over the place on Mastodon, Blue Sky, and on that other place that nobody uses anymore. Hello, Josh. Thank you for waving and letting us know that it's working. So we do this every week, like I say, and we go through some open source stuff that we have to do anyway, but we thought we'd open it up so other people can view it and learn from it and ask us questions as well. I don't think I missed anything there. Hello, Chris, Will, and Keith. We've got no Alex and Dan this week. Hope you're all doing well. So if any of you are watching and you want to learn more, the best places to go are anchor.com/open source. That's got links to a bunch of places. Discourse, the short link to that, anchor.com/discourse. We post in here every week. And if you have questions about any of our open source stuff, you can post it in here. There's a new couple of things I need to mention this week before we dive into the open sourcey stuff. The first one is we've got a new newsletter that you can sign up for. Just plonk your name and your email in there and hit sign up. And I'll put a link in the video underneath this, the description underneath this video, and I'll post it out on our socials a little bit later on. The idea behind this is we can send out little emails. Not super often. We don't want to spam you with all kinds of stuff. Don't worry, you're not subscribing to GitHub notifications or anything like that. We'll just send out little notifications about events that are coming up, because we've got a few new events that are coming up, and other notifications that we think you might be interested in. But they'll be not like heavy marketing or anything like that. It's going to be quite lightweight, not super often, so don't worry too much. And you can always unsubscribe. One of the things I think I will mention, though, is this new repository that's turned up under Anchor, and it's an SBOM ebook. It's an open source book that we're creating. This is the early days. It's all written in markdown files in the repository, so it should be fairly accessible. You can clone this, do pull requests. We've got some details down the bottom about how you can build a PDF version of the book. It's pretty straightforward, and there's some guides down here to how to contribute. I'll leave you to read that, but you'll find it in the Anchor repository on GitHub. As with everything that we talk about here, everything we do is under our GitHub repo, and you'll find it somewhere down here along with all the other stuff that we've got. So every week, somewhere over here, let me close some of this stuff. Every week we put a list of stuff to do together, and that's linked down here. But before we start, I wanted to ask, does anyone have anything they want to announce or mention?
There is one thing that just landed. If people are watching and enjoy just seeing what Syft can do as far as licenses go, I would check out the Golang and Java cataloger specifically on main. We're looking to do a release coming up soon, but you can build the latest Syft from main and check it out. We're including contents with some of the licenses. There's an option now that landed. So test that out, see how much larger your SBOMs are
Not
getting.
that one.
Oh, it's if you go into like pull requests that closed, or if you go to main on Syft, it should be like in the top 5 or so. Unless we had a lot of dependent bot PRs going today. Oh, that's it right there. Nope.
Which
Go
one's
back.
that?
You just go backwards.
Oh.
Yep. And then click that commit from, yep, right there.
Clever. Okay.
Yeah. So 3631 landed. You can enable contents to happen. And I used it to test a few larger images just to see how much larger the SBOMs got. They didn't get too much larger with contents, but it's worth other people checking and trying it out. And if you see an abnormally large document come out with a scan target, ping me on issues or just at me on Discourse and I'll check it out. But yeah, this is hopefully making it a bit more accurate and more transparent as how we're identifying unknown licenses in Syft. So
Huh.
that's cool. That just landed.
Unknown, like what would you consider an unknown license? Is like some like homegrown wacky license or something that doesn't fit the SPDX, like isn't known to SPDX? Is that basically the
Yeah, there's a couple of things that can trigger this. We have a confidence score where we use the Google license scanner to analyze like the bytes of a document that we have a suspect like a that we suspect is a license. There's a small slice of file names that we key off of what could potentially be a license. We feed that into the license cataloger or into the license classifier, and if it doesn't meet, it's called like a 75% coverage match, which is within this document, 75% of it or so does it match the licenses that are known to it, which is just a when it initializes itself, it reads in a whole host of known licenses at the exact text. And then it returns the SPDX ID for that text. And then if any of those matches fall below that confidence percentage, what we'll do is by default, we won't return the contents, but you can enable it to return the contents for those licenses that it's not confident about. And you can do your own due diligence on figuring out what they are, or you can kind of just pass that up and lift it up into the SBOM for your own analysis. We just didn't want to take the chance of being wrong on that. It's notable too that it's not a one-to-one thing. So the license classifier can do if you have a document that has like Apache, MIT, GPL, just flat text all the way through, it'll return all four IDs for that. Those licenses aren't compatible, obviously, but if you have a document that has multiple in there, it knows how to return matches of multiple IDs from a single text document. So
huh?
that exists.
Interesting. Awesome. So I'll put a link in the underneath this this announcement of this. I try and collate everything we talk about, and I'll put a link to that underneath this, which people should be able to find pretty straightforward. I also put out a social post on Friday after we record this with in case you missed it, that links to all of this. So people should be able to find everything we're talking about.
You'll
Thanks
also
for that.
see a few, yeah, you'll see a few more PRs probably landing around other catalogers being able to access this classifier via context, so that we can start pointing it at more files that we find in other catalogers. But right now it's enabled for the Python, egg wheel metadata, Java, all like most of the Java catalogers, and then most of the Golang catalogers. So we're slowly spreading it across the Syft ecosystem.
Nice. That's pretty cool. Thanks for that. Anyone else got anything else they wanted to mention or announce or talk about briefly at the start? If not, then I'm going to dive in and use this time to do a little bit of self-promotion of a thing that I made last weekend. I was clearly bored last weekend and I decided to create a little thing, an interactive front end to view SBOMs, and I called it SBOMage, which, or SBOM Mage, as I think some people called it. So somewhere over here, I actually have a window. So the idea is it's just a way to view SBOMs. I've got it cloned here. And in the repo, there are some example SBOMs just to show you what it looks like. You can clone it, and it's written in Python. It's really easy. If I just grab one of these, I've got some example SBOMs in there so that you can test it. And if I open this, you can see some details about this particular SBOM, some metadata, and then you can see what packages are in there. And if you see down the bottom of the screen, you can sort this view by the names of the packages, which is what we're in there, or you could do it by type, so we can see there are debs in here and node packages and all that kind of stuff. And referencing what you were just talking about, Chris, you can also sort by licenses, and so you can see all of the licenses or all of the things that are licensed under all these different licenses, and then you can like drill down on them and say, oh look, that's licensed released under this license, which is quite cool. And I recently added a search facility. So if you press the / key, and I think there might be, I don't know, zlib in here, I could just type ZL and it will jump to Guzzle. I did not know Guzzle was a thing that was in here. But if I carry on typing, it hits zlib. And so I can like navigate from there. You can also use the mouse as well. It's pretty cool. I don't know if this is useful to people. I find it quite fun to develop this kind of stuff, and so it's been useful for me. Someone did a patch on one of the other tools I made that added Vim keys. So you'll see down the bottom it's got up, down, left, and right using like J, K, H, and L for like the Vim keys. So I had to move the license from the L key. I moved it to C for copyright or code or something. Oh, I was upset about that a little bit, but I thought, well, if someone's gonna want to use the Vim keys,
There's no other way to navigate text besides the Vim keys. Everyone
apparently
else is
so.
wrong.
Yes, that is the only way. But I like this because you can navigate with your mouse, and I added this so you can see all the licenses. Anyway, that's that. If you want to check it out, there'll be a link in the description and all the good places. So that's all the fluff I wanted to talk about. Have we got any issues that are marked as needs discussion? We have a few. Are there any that we haven't spoken about recently? This one's recently updated. Any that you guys are aware of that we need to?
Yeah, actually, the one that I posted in our chat, I was a little. I think it's actually the one that you have on the top there.
That one.
222216. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So this one came up during kind of my sleuthing this week on. I was looking for things that could be quick fixes for the dopamine hit of like, oh, let me get something in while trying to work on larger problems. And I realized I didn't totally understand this check versus being in Grype versus being in Syft. I know recently we released the enhancements part of Syft. And so can someone walk me through like why we have this Maven package by SHA lookup in Grype, and we have also the enhancement in Syft when you bring the SBOM? I know there was discussion at the bottom of this, like now that we have the enrichments, it could just happen previous to it. But yeah, why both sides? Can we get rid of this? Can we clean this up? What's kind of the state of the world of enriching in both the tools?
That's a wide question.
Maybe we can use this one to focus it. Maybe just the state of enrichment for specifically Java packages. Like, is this unique to Grype that we only do this in Grype? Could Syft also provide this information if we did enrich in Syft and pass the SBOM over? Yeah.
We could, I think so. What this is doing is different than what the other Java enrichment is doing in Syft, if I understand it. So if I like my impression of what Grype is doing is we have a SHA-1 we've calculated from a jar file, and we're using that SHA-1 to go look up on Maven Central, what is this, et cetera, get the information. In the Syft side of things, it's extracting out all those jar files and like reading all the Maven data. And when it builds the Maven model to get some of the information, like the version, it might be inherited from the parent. And so it goes and downloads a parent POM. And so it's kind of a different purpose. But I think what this is doing could absolutely be moved into Syft and would be beneficial in Syft, because there are probably some situations where, especially with like older things or things that don't have POMs baked into them, like the only way we can really figure out what it is to like do some sort of a hash lookup. And so like this being only in Grype to me is like kind of, not the best. But if it was moved into Syft, then we would just have another thing that Syft would be able to do, to figure out what those things are. And it might not actually have to do that in a lot of cases because, the information, the metadata that we find is sufficient in the jar anyway. And so like, this is kind of a last ditch effort of like, hey, we couldn't find the Maven data in the artifact. We couldn't figure out what it is. So like, go look it up based on a hash. So, I mean, if we're, talking about like, my vote would absolutely be to move this there. And I commented something to that effect, I believe, on this issue already.
So am I right in saying this is the -- enrich option in Grype?
There is no enrich option in Grype today. It needs to, we still need to add that. There's kind of a little bit of a holdup. And the problem is with the enrichment, we believe that it's very important to be able to cache the data so that you're not just repeatedly doing the same network calls and DOSing servers and all that sort of stuff. So like in Syft, it's strongly caching everything that it needs to be able to answer those questions the second time you run it in a well-known place. The problem is we don't like, because that is fairly new, we don't have a way to configure, it's all internal in Syft and we don't have a way to configure it in Grype. So we don't have a way to share the cache data. We don't like, so it's a little unclear exactly what Grype should do, which is why it hasn't been implemented in Grype yet. But yeah, I think that it would be. And, you know, at that point, if this was ported into Syft, then, you know, Syft enrich, Grype enrich would just like look everything up that it couldn't figure out on its own. And, you know, both the tools would kind of benefit from that.
I think the other question I had about this one was with the new enrich functionality over in Syft. And let's say we had like a very large amount of like Java dependencies, like we were doing like a Java focused analysis. If we did all of the enrich flags on Syft, and then it, like, let's say I did a Grype run that triggered Syft with enrich enabled, and then it came to this, because we don't have this condition for the POM info missing, is this like we're currently at the risk of just being totally rate limited and kind of slowed down by Maven Central, where they would just realize, oh, we did all this enrichment over in Syft. Now we're querying them again by SHA for every Java package. Our processing time is just going to slow to a crawl because we're waiting on all those network requests to go through. Is that one of the problems with this issue right now that we're trying to solve?
I think so, and it's even worse than that, actually. James Rawlings, who incidentally I used to work with, added a PR in Grype and a follow-on PR in Grype to rate limit the Maven stuff, because he basically hit that right away, that he was getting rate limited and then nothing would work because, you know, the request wouldn't even come back for this. So the thing that what I believe is, if we move this into Syft, then, you know, we do all the normal scanning that Syft is doing today, and, you know, these requests would be limited to only the things that we couldn't figure out, you know, by doing the normal lookups. The other thing to note, and I don't know exactly how it works, it's probably dependent on, you know, a lot of different factors, but they're making different network requests. So like one of them is hitting an API that's like looking up, you know, this hash lookup. But the way Maven works, you're just hitting URLs. So those are like pretty easy to cache, if that makes sense, right? So like when you do all the POM lookups, there's a lot of like proxying that happens. And like if you do it on an internal, you know, system, a lot of people have their own Maven mirror. And so they've got all their data locally, so they're not hitting Maven Central. But this hash lookup, I believe, is not something that's just standard Maven stuff, but it is like Maven Central supported. So I think if like what we did was we did all the standard Maven stuff, and then only in the situation where we couldn't figure out what the thing is, we fall back to that hash lookup, that would like limit what we're doing, you know, those requests that go to Maven Central for that at least. And I think like everybody would be happier, but that's just kind of my gut feeling.
What system do we have to go through for the local hash lookup? That's not something that we would maintain. It's part of the Java build system that we can access, or what's like the offline mode that we reference when we want to find out what something is?
There isn't anything.
Oh, there isn't. Okay. Sorry,
It's
I saw a
only-
comment from Dan L that said we could do this in offline mode in another issue that tagged this, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that even existed. But okay, there isn't one.
I mean, what we could do is we could definitely have, I mean, again, going back to the caching that I mentioned a while ago, right? We could have like, the way the caching works is it's like a very consistent directory structure. So like it would be pretty easy to put known hashes in that directory structure, and Syft would be able to find them. Like with the right metadata, et cetera, you know, like I'm hand waving a little bit at that, but like that would be one way that you could potentially do it in offline mode. But I'm pretty sure that this is like a Maven Central API thing, that this hash lookup is for. It's not just like, I don't know if all the Maven, the mirrors support it. I don't know all those answers. So anybody who's like up to date on Maven could definitely comment on this issue and let us know if that's something maybe we could, you know, just if we know what the Maven repo URL is, you know, maybe there's a standard API that all of them support, and we could, you know, avoid hitting Maven Central for everything at least. Like that's the main thing. But I don't know all those answers, unfortunately.
Is that everything you needed, Chris?
Yeah, I think I understand the problem more clearly now. That's a better summary than if I had done my own like digging, trying to come up with it and then try to reconcile it. So thank you, Keith, for the overview of all of that. There is one more issue that Alex filed as a follow-up It's 2393 that I think I linked in our Zoom chat for easy access. Keith, is this basically what we want right now? Do we want these features for the next Grype release, or are we encountering like like bad behavior for Grype right now because of the rate limiting that comes from this kind of like enhancement being done on both sides of the fence in Syft and Grype? Like if we were to just return one and like start processing these 429s or these 500s correctly and getting Grype to a state where we could still return a result, is that the ideal? Like if we were to release Grype tomorrow, or are we do we feel really badly about that because this stuff hasn't been implemented yet?
Well, I think if I read that first issue that we were looking at correctly, that was basically saying that if we enable this feature today, we're actually looking up every single artifact,
Yes.
not just looking up the artifacts that we are unsure about. So, like, I guess what I was saying, like with the Syft thing, is like we could just make that change in Grype too, right? If it looks like an artifact that we have all the information for, that we have an accurate version, it looks like a version string, it looks like a version, you know, we've got the group ID, we've got all the Maven info that we think is right. Like we could avoid, like, just not do the hash lookup for those things, and then only do the hash lookup for things that like we couldn't figure the version out, or we couldn't figure some information out that we need to do the matching in Grype. And I think that's what the first thing was saying. And so like if we did that, I think that would like really help people from getting the rate limited in the first place. But the problem is if we're like relying on the rate limiting, like it's absolutely going to start, you know, impacting what results people see in Grype, because people, you know, things will just start failing. So, I mean, we probably, this is a really interesting one. It kind of feels a bit like the unknowns stuff that we have in Syft, where we want to continue and we want to do everything that we can, but we ran into one thing that we couldn't figure out. And so we want to report that to the user, but give them the whole, like, but not fail the whole process. You know what I mean? Like we
Right.
want to have something that like returns the errors to the user. Like, look, I tried to check Maven for these 500 things and I got rate limited every single time and I couldn't do it. Like, here are all those errors, but here's what results that I could figure out. Like, I wouldn't want to make the whole thing just not function if that starts failing, because they might have a bunch of other stuff that worked that they could get valid results for.
Okay.
So I think that's what this is saying. What we're looking at here is like collect those errors, don't fail, but report them to the user. That's, I think, what this is saying.
Okay. So does that one need any more discussion, or
No, I'll take it. I'll take it off.
Okay, thank you. This one, has this one been tagged by someone? It says needs discussion. Classify license based on file contents.
I'll talk about that one. Yeah, that was also me adding my stuff to it.
Sweet.
Let me go. And this is Syft 656. Screen. I was literally just looking at Syft for the first time today. Just a heads up on this issue. Cataloger. Oh, I'm so sorry. This is the one that we talked about the other week. So I forgot to take off needs discussion. But this is just like what the future of Syft 2.0 would look like for licenses. So we already covered this last week. My apologies.
Sweet. So we'll take that off.
Yeah, I just took the label off.
Sweet. Is this another one we've done before? SBOM creation of container image indexes. Is this
Oh, is this talking about like multi-arch images?
Yes.
Yeah, we currently we don't do this at all. This had 10 thumbs up. I don't know what the root level package would be for container. I guess it would just be the label of the container itself, right? But you still have to do the yeah. I don't. This is extremely complex. So
it is. It's a
go ahead.
It's a little bit like when they ask, like people periodically ask to like scan a Helm chart, and what they mean is scan all the images the Helm chart is going to start. Because this is also right. I mean, a manifest is a list of images, and someone is telling us that they're related, but I don't think there's anything about the world that makes that true. I think that's just like a convention. It would be surprising if you put random unrelated images in the same manifest, but I don't think the API stops you. Um,
No, it definitely doesn't. But like, a lot
But-
of things would break.
but anyway, so it's interesting. It's like you could just like, you know, ask Crane or something what platforms there are, and then repeatedly run Syft with dash dash platform for the different platforms. But it might be nice to like, I don't know. I'd like to. Do they say why they want to do this? Like, because usually multi-arch per platform SBOM, making a per platform SBOM, right? So what they really want to do is run Syft a lot of times, right? I think that's how I understand per platform SBOM. They just don't want to script running Syft a lot of times, understandably.
I mean, there's a distinct problem that we have today, which is that Syft has a single source in its data model, and we can't really change that too much without doing a huge refactoring. I tried this at one point, like a year ago.
Right. But
And-
but that one comment, he was asking for like multiple SBOMs. Right. Like if we go back to the issue and scroll up just a little, one of the commenters was specifically saying, like from John Ziola right there, I think in my scenario that making a per platform SBOM for a multi-platform manifest would be a very valuable step forward. So I
Right, so
think
not
what
a
they're
single one.
asking is for an easier way to tell Syft to run on every member of a multi-image manifest. But I mean, it feels a little bit like I don't know, Syft just reaches over the manifest and forks itself or something. Like I don't know, but it doesn't seem like a change in data model. It seems like he just wants n SBOMs if there are n images, which is way easier. So like I think your point is really valid, Keith. If they want us to somehow write down all the membership of the multi-arch index in one document, then we do have to solve the problem Keith is talking about. Anyway,
Well-
I think Chris is going.
Yeah, there's one small nuance to that. If Alan, if you click on there's a comment on there that talks about the way SPDX treats the multi-arch documented semantics from Steven, or from
Which one?
Steve Hypal. That one right there. Yep.
Yeah.
So Will is correct that we would be producing multiple documents, but those documents would have to have knowledge of each other, where there would have to be some crosstalk, because if you scroll to the bottom, I think, variant of right there. So we want the documents to have relationships so we could model the full dependency graph across them, which says that like this thing is a variant of, this root top level manifest. So you think like that image index that's on the left, that first one, package name SHA 9237, like there'd be an SBOM for that. It would have relationships that would have variant of, and it would point to another SPDX document using the SPDX docref. And then it would say, go see this other document that is a full listing of all the dependencies and all of the things. So you'd be like linking them together. And I think rather than Syft producing like 10 independent SBOMs that all don't know about each other, they just all happen to be a collection of analysis that are within the same index, they would have this kind of like linkage across them. That would be the full, I guess, representation of, what the output of this issue would be.
Right. And that sort of makes sense, I guess, then. So then the source is the image index.
Mhm.
And then we have like the big, right. And so then we have like an image as PDX element, and then it contains relationships to all the artifacts we found in it. And it has a variant of relationship to the source.
Yep.
That makes some sense. I don't know. How does that sound to you, Keith? I haven't actually tried this, so you probably know more.
It sounds great. I think that, like, it's a perfect model. The problem is that like all of those things are sources. Like that each of those, like in our data model, the image index is a source, the image that we scan is a source, and we only have a single source in our data model. So we would have to have some way of having multiple sources that we could reference at the same time. And the problem is that like that's a huge change to our code base.
What if we have an artifact type that, like a package type OCI?
I mean, it would be great. If our data model was exactly like SPDX, it would work fine because you could do that. But like what we would have to do is kind of like what somebody said earlier, which is like spawn multiple sifts, right? Like there would be one sift that is like, I have a source and it's this image index. Let me look at the things. I'm going to spawn another sift to go do its thing with this other source.
I
I think what Keith's getting to is that like we can't in our relationships express connections across multiple Syft documents right now. Like like when we were to do this analysis, like how would we go from saying how would we keep logically all the 10 SBOMs in the Syft format across, and then have in their relationships have them say, now you're pointing to this across the border to this other Syft format, like this other Syft SBOM that's being generated in parallel. And then let's convert all of these over to 10 different SPDX documents that can all link together, right? Sorry, Will, I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's okay. I just think that the proposal here, I think, is to treat the image index as a single source and to treat the images within it as artifacts. So we make a single giant SBOM where we have source, image index, Alpine latest, and then we have a package type OCI, Alpine AR64, and then that has a contains relationship to whatever we find in it, and then we have another. So in other words, we have sort of it might be hard with control flow, but I don't know that we need a data model change to say the sources of type image index, and then the image index contains n OCI packages, and then the OCI packages contain n regular packages. That feels like just a new package type, which is a very well-defined sort of change. Is there a problem with that I'm missing?
Yeah, that sounds good. Like we don't even have to we don't have to have the source for that thing that is of the new package type OCI, and we just we make it a package type which then has relationships to all the things that were found under it, and we use the single source to be for the image index and not these 10 or 5 other things that are under it. That, I mean, we could try that. Keith, did you run into problems with that at all, or have you tried that?
I ran it, yeah. So, I mean, I want to say about 2 years ago. So, certainly maybe things have changed since then. About 2 years ago, I tried to add the ability to have multiple sources to Syft. And the problem was that like our function signatures take one source, or something takes a source and a package, or like, so it's like we could totally change Syft. My point is that like today, it's just like there is a large potential and it's a big change.
I think, but under the proposal I just made, we don't need to have more than one source in the SBOM model, right? We just need to have like, I guess sort of I guess we do need multiple. So I guess source is meaning two things. I think that's why we're talking past each other, because I think I'm thinking of source as being like the source.description in the final SBOM. Like in my way, we would only have one of those, but we would still need to have like multiple file resolvers, right? Because we need a file resolver for each architecture.
Yes.
And so we would almost want to like, I don't know, I almost like,
Yeah, it's
how
just like
gross
another
would it be-
Rubik's Cube layer to like the parallelism thing that we were
How
talking about.
gross would it be to just fork exec Syft with different dash platforms for every and capture standard out and then like merge it and dump it out? Like
That honestly would be the easiest.
like and you get parallelism, right? You just let the operating system deal with how to do the concurrency. Yeah, okay. So I think that okay, I understand the issue a lot better now. The problem with this is that right now, Syft has exactly one file system for its total invocation, and a multi-image manifest has n file systems, and we don't have any way to write that down in Syft without a big refactor. Okay, that makes sense. I don't know. This also reminds me a little bit of the like like the in progress thing. Because the other thing we're going to run into as soon as you do this on a non-trivial image is you're going to be like, I cannot have, let's say node latest has, thousands of files in it and chips for every conceivable architecture. So then we would need thousands of files times dozens of layers times dozens of architectures. We would need more RAM, so we would need some in-flight stuff. Anyway, okay. So it sounds like right now we don't have a good way to write down that there's multiple file systems involved in a scan. Now, if we wanted to just make the person who wants Syft to give him multiple SBOMs happy, that feels like about 10 lines of Python. And I hate to reach for that, but that is one possible answer, is to just say, like, look, just get Crane to do a JSON dump of the manifest and write 10 lines of Python to have Syft scan each member of the manifest. And we can even host the 10 lines of Python for you at a well-known location.
Well, the 10 lines of Python also has to go through each document after they're generated and append the variant of into whichever format it was generated for to link them all together.
that like SPDX wrapper bit does make it more complicated. That's interesting. I think the real ask here then is, like, Syft can support multiple file systems, which is an interesting idea, right? I mean, I think that's an interesting, like, what if I have a product that's a Helm chart and I have to provide an SBOM as part of my contract? And I want to just say, hey, Syft, you have access to our registry. Here is our Helm chart. Go make me a thing. And then the, like, API foo service has an SBOM that is part of the bigger SBOM. Like, that ask also makes sense. It's a very similar ask, actually, because they're both lists of images. Okay. Do we have anything we want to tell this person today, now that we all talked a lot?
If I was to comment back on this one, I would have the 10 lines of Python ready to go. So maybe that's on me. Since I put the discussion on it, I'll find a way to at least get them all the SBOMs from Syft with, like, a wrapper, and then say, does this work? Check out our live stream. Which way do we want to go? Because the other direction is very complex and requires Syft 2.0.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, things have changed since, like, 2 years ago. So, like, it definitely could be that things are better now. It's in fact, like, one of the things that comes to mind is I totally refactored the way sources work. So it's possible maybe we have, like, a multi-source or something. So, like, somebody puts something, we figure out that it's, like, a thing, it returns a multi-source, and then our CLI could check to see, like, oh, this is a multi-source. Just run Syft multiple times on these things. We still would need to figure out how those get put together, and, like, there's like, that's a lot of hand waving. Like, I can tell you, I'm fairly certain it's, like, more complicated than just that, but, like, that might be a good start. But yeah, I don't know. I guess, like, the question is, like, do we even, like, is that what Syft is supposed to do? I don't know if what the answer is to that either.
Yeah, I think there's a real risk that this is a feature that's really, really expensive to build, that is not helpful to everyone, but it does have 10 thumbs up. That's really unusual for a Syft issue. So maybe we should, I think we have a couple of paths forward, right? There's implement multi-source in Syft, as Keith described. There's just call Syft multiple times outside Syft. And then there's the, like, I don't know, everything else seems to be a variation of one of those two. But I kind of like the idea of a multi-source. I don't know how hard that would be, but it's something that implements, like, all the right interfaces for source, but somehow knows that it needs to be called multiple times.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, there's. Yeah, here, I'm gonna just post a link. I mean, so, like, the main, Syft command calls this get source thing, right? And that's the thing that, like, basically asks stereoscope for, what is the user asking for? Give me a a file system. That's what, when I've been saying source, like you said, Will, I'm talking about the file system essentially. And so like, that's what gets returned there, but like potentially that could be put in a loop or something. But like, if you look below, each of those, I think, are returning an SBOM. And so like, they have to get combined somehow. And, you know, like the link, you know, like Chris was saying, the links in SPDX, that gets like even more wonky because like, yeah, it's so like it's just it doesn't end up being
Well,
quite as simple, but like, but there could be a,
we already have one multiple file system cataloger, which is the all layers mode of scanning an OCI image, right? That's multiple file systems. Essentially, we make an SBOM for every layer, right?
no, we the layer information is captured with the file. So like it's
Okay.
one file system that has all of the layers in the same view, essentially all at the same time. But when you get a reference to a file, let's say you do a glob search for, startup package.json or whatever, it gives you back a package.json, including the layer that it came from. So like you might get multiple package.json from different layers, but it's all in the same view.
I see. But is that like, what if we got multiple package.jsons from different images from different layers, right? So we add another dimension to the file coordinate.
Maybe that's a thing. Yeah, maybe that's something that could work. Maybe that's actually one of the best suggestions here, which is implement like a stereoscope multi-architecture source that has not only the file like the layer information, but also the which of the images from that manifest it came from. Like that seems like something that potentially could actually work really well.
Okay, so it sounds like, can we try to capture, I can try to capture like a feature, like a comment that says like, sort of, in order to do this, we need for stereoscope to implement a multi-image source that essentially adds a dimension to the file coordinates that is which image in addition to like which layer and which path. I'll add a comment there, and then we could just say it in the meantime. Your best bet might be to invoke Syft multiple times, because it's probably not a fast change. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
thanks.
Right. So that's not what I wanted. So we did that one and that one. Have we got?
Oh, I'm taking Neat's discussion off that one too. For now.
Cool. So if I just refresh this, that's that one, isn't it? That's the one we were just looking at. Oh gosh. So this one, who tagged this one? This was another one that you tagged, Chris. Have we discussed this one already? I feel like this has been discussed all over the place, but this is new for us here. This is about the zlib.
I think we talked about this one last week. Yeah, because I had this comment from me is deferring to Weston and Josh. I think we talked about last week about them coming in and chiming in on this, and they haven't.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
All right.
I'll just take it off.
Sweet. I think we talked about reproducible SBOMs last week, didn't we?
I believe so.
Well, maybe not.
Talked about it at the end of last year. This was like our last live stream before coming into the new year, because we just talked about all the things that we had to take off of Syft for them.
Oh, so
become
things like,
reproducible.
yes, because we had like date stamps in there and and other things. What was the other thing? I can't remember. It's at the bottom.
The configuration maybe, but I mean that should be
Yeah. That was it. Yep. But we have discussed that. I think, are we out? This is reproducible as well, isn't it? That's the same kind of thing.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, we're out of all the ones
yes.
that I had. I tagged pretty liberally the past week just to bring stuff up that we hadn't talked about in a while,
So
or
there's
just
a
hadn't been discussed on this live stream.
okay, thank you. So there is a PR that's got a needs discussion on it. How long ago was that added? Oh, last year. So this is a include OS information S1 model SPDX reports. So this is this issue. When we generate an SPDX for container images, OS information is not included in the package information section. Okay, and someone's done a PR. And has anyone looked at this already? I tested it. Check me out. Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, hold on. This is what is I say SPDX3 something about that, and I mean, yeah, we still don't have SPDX3. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Right.
we don't.
So is this mainly dealing with something that's missing that is in SPDX3 as a requirement, but not in 2. Whatever?
I don't believe so. I believe 2.3 added the primary package purpose, which really enabled a lot of things like for us to be able to add containers. And I think one of them is operating system, and they're just asking for us to put that in here. And we're putting it in Cyclone DX. And so I mean, it seems like we should just put it in SPDX also. I don't really, I mean, there
Well,
might be like an implementation thing here or something.
yeah, sorry, I'm catching up because I'm reading my comment from last year because I looked at this one before the break. We don't have a concept of the distro of something as a package, and that's what we basically need to create the distro being analyzed as a Syft package so that it can then be translated into the SPDX document as an OS as a package, right? So it's either we shoehorn in reading the distro information from source, treat it outside the band of Syft packages of conversion to SPDX, and create a distro to create an operating system package from our distro object, or we decide, hey, operating systems are valid packages. Let's convert distro over into a package in Syft, and then just allow all of our conversion and kind of format model logic to lift that up into the different formats that would represent an operating system as a package.
I think we can just take it off of the source probably, and that would be fine, at least for now. Would be my thinking. I mean, because I think we're doing that already for the container information. I'm looking through the code. Sorry if I'm being quiet here. Like, yeah. Okay, there. Like, this is what we're taking. Like, we make this root package, and so when we scan a container, we've got the image metadata, and so we extract whatever we need off of that to make a package. Like everything's an SPDX is a package here in this SPDX 2.3, and so we make a container type package, and that's what the root thing is to represent that. And so, but there's also this like the OS, and so I think we just pull out whatever we can off of the distro information and just make an SP a package with the operating system purpose. But I mean, I guess I should just look at the PR too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
I mean,
that's what we were looking at. Is
my point, my comment and my point was that if we do this for SPDX, then for Cyclone DX and then for Syft JSON, we just have different like kind of strands hanging in the format section of how we're differentiating from operating systems. So there's a choice we could make here, which would allow us to just make something that is of operating system type in the list of packages in Syft, and then it would just show up everywhere rather than just handling it as a special case for SPDX, like creating that package. Because like, okay, let's say we use the Syft API to create an SBOM object, then we wouldn't have that operating system package yet, and we only append that package in the like when the format code gets invoked. So like we're adding a package after the main SBOM creation has happened. And that feels kind of like an anti pattern of what we don't want to do. We don't want to add or subtract packages in the format code, like for a specific, just as a special case for a format, right? We want packages to be created and be on the in the package manifest of the SBOM when we invoke create SBOM.
I think that the weirdness that we have is that both SPDX and CycloneDX kind of treat packages as that, container thing for a lot of things. And in Syft, we've decided we have a specialized source and a specialized distro, and those aren't what we consider, packages in Syft. And like, we could think about it differently and like put those things in packages in Syft, but because we're not, like, what we have to do is translate them. And I put a link in there, but like we're doing that for CycloneDX today. Like we're making an OS component there out of the distro. And I think that's the right thing to do, because that's just like, we just have the data in different places in the models. And like, it would be my preference to move more towards the model of having packages for these things in Syft too, but like, we're not going to have that with V1 because we're not going to change the model.
Yeah, I don't think we have to change the model. I think we just have to make a new package type, like Will's previous comment when we were talking about adding package types to represent the OCI layers, right? If we added a package type that was operating system, then we wouldn't, like, let's say this feature landed, we wouldn't get questions where someone was like, why does the Syft SBOM have 80 packages, but the SPDX SBOM has 81? Like, what happens there? And you have to go, oh, well, here in the format code, we're getting the packages off the SBOM, and then we're reading distro information and we're appending a new package in. So it's like you start getting these strands in the code where users come back and ask questions of why the package lists are different, and you have to start pointing to the nuances of the different formats of why that happens. So if we, like to Keith, like you said, if we can just handle it in our model currently as V1 1.0, then we can keep those package lists consistent and reduce user confusion. Will has his hand.
It also unblocks handling the output of multiple images kind of nicely, right? Because if each distro, like if the distro that the image is built from is just another package in the SBOM, then there's not really anything wrong. Like if I have like a Helm chart where I'm using like Alpine Nginx for like some edge stuff, and I'm using like Ubuntu for like a big Rails service in the middle or whatever. Like we can have like if Alpine and Ubuntu are both just packages, then they're both just in the SBOM, and we could use relationships to show what's installed where. So that also, like, I don't know, that kind of resonates with me, that like, the data model is like, I think having the singular distro object is sort of Syft showing its roots as a scanner of single Docker images, right? Which have sort of a single distro. But like, if we just think of an SBOM as like a manifest of all the software that is in this thing, then there's no reason there shouldn't be more than one kind of Linux in this thing. If it's like, I want to make an SBOM of all the junk that's running in my car, right? Like, well, my car's old, so it doesn't have a lot of software, but like a new car, then
I want
yeah,
that car.
okay.
Well, there's also like a deployment. You could think of a deployment being a thing, and a deployment might be multiple pods, and they might have different versions of distros in them. So if you want an atomic SBOM of the whole thing, then the whole deployment, then yes, that's a reasonable ask, I think.
And it also lets us have an entry for stuff where Like, I think one of the things Syft could do better is if you have something that is usually distributed as a single image or as like a set of images, right? If you like spin up Grafana or something, right? This is lots and lots of little packages, but like Grafana is a product. And so having the like, I think having a package type of OCI image and a package type of distro lets us sort of describe things that are commonly distributed as like a Helm chart or as a package of, um, or as an OCI image or as a Bosch manifest
I have a great
for all
example
the
of this.
Cloud Foundry kids still out there.
Anchore Enterprise, which is like multiple containers containing like lots of different stuff.
It's true.
One of them could be a different distro.
I think it's also like it's a good like a step in that direction of having the package type, like a package type that represents the distro or a package type that represents the one of the OCI like images in an index is that we can still keep the distro object because it provides super valuable information about the scan target and kind of the source of what came out. But it's a good like, hey, we can start moving away from it and we can say this is kind of the context in which we want to start labeling and aggregating all of our data in the huge package list. The less we have these kind of like specialized things outside of the package list that we're cataloging and putting data in, the closer we get to having like same of I generated an SBOM, it's Syft, CycloneDX, and SPDX, and they all say the same thing, right? Which is not like currently right now, if we were to land this feature, we would have a package diff of 1 between the two, between SPDX and Syft JSON, which is not the direction I think we want to be going.
So is there a tidy comment that someone can volunteer to leave for this PR?
I'll leave it since I told him we would discuss it at the end of last year. It never came up during our discussions. We've finally done it, and I can make some progress there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We're running out of time, but there is something that was asked. Tim asked if we could review these, and I pointed out, everyone's a little bit busy at the minute. Plus, we've had, a little bit of illness on the team. So we'll have to come back to that when the team has a bit of time. But they did ask that this was merged. I don't know what they mean, would appreciate to explain about that. I don't know what they mean by explain about other than what it does.
So I think they were. So there was an issue that you can't turn off. Like, I think before this, you couldn't turn file metadata all the way off in Syft.
Right.
And I think that after this, you can. And that's my context. I think that's maybe the missing link. Maybe Keith has more context.
I think it was backwards of that. You couldn't turn off all the catalogers. I think what Tim was looking to do was just do the file catalogers, but if you turned off all the catalogers, it would say you don't have any catalogers. Syft won't run. And so what this does is it lets you just enable the file catalogers, like
Right.
using the same selection that the catalogers are typically.
Yeah, I think it also lets you turn off like
You're both correct, because when you said metadata none for the file cataloger, you would still see metadata for some files, and people were like, WTF, mate. And so now, because we have the contents tags for each of these, right, you could reach into that part of the file metadata that was not being talked to by that config option before. So yes, you can only enable file catalogers, as Keith said, but you can also guarantee that there's no file metadata objects existing in the SBOM now if you turn off all of these tags. So it goes both ways.
Nice. Excellent summary. Thank you so much. I hope that satisfies Tim. I'll put a link in there to say that we did discuss this. In fact, if I just press submit on this reply here, like that, then jump over here, you'll see that I've just added that right here. So we've got a summary of everything we discussed. Thank you so much. So thank you, chaps. That was a lot. A lot of discussion, and we've got some resolutions to some of those conversations on the issues. I appreciate that. Thank you all. Thanks for watching, and come back next Thursday for another one of these. And we're going to have a different community session, and I will announce that on the socials and on Discourse a little bit later. We're inviting people from the community and people who consume Syft in products, or they build upon Syft and Grype in their tools, to come on and talk to us about what they're using Syft for, or how they're contributing to Syft or Grype or whatever. And so that should be interesting, and we'll invite people on each week when we normally do our closed community sessions, which are not usually streamed. So I'll put more information about that on Discourse after this call, and I'll link to it in the on the social media stuff. So Syft and Grype's socials that you'll find on Blue Sky and Mastodon and that other place. And so you should be able to find all that information. It'll be on Discourse as well. And I think I'm going to update. We've got an events page on the Anchore website somewhere. Where is it? Resources, events. I'll stick them in here as well. So they'll be nice and easy to find, so people can just like scroll through here and find those kind of things nice and easily. Trying to make sure there's a way for everyone to find this stuff nice and easily without having to like hunt stuff down. So the events page will get updated as well. All right, I think that's everything. Thanks everyone. As always, see you next week. Have a good weekend. Ta-da.
Yep.